Why am I wasting so much time? So let's get started. How many of you here feel that they are Git novices? Just raise your hand. Okay, about 30%. How many of you here feel that you are Git intermediate, whatever that means? Okay, yeah. All right. And how many of you here are Git masters? Are there any here? Don't be afraid to raise your hand if you are. Okay. So the goal of this presentation is to show you things that you might not know exist in Git and that they will improve your workflow. And I try to have something for every level. Some things you might already know about and some things you might not know about. So my hope is that all of you, at least when you leave this session, know one new thing about Git that you didn't know. And if for some reason some of you leave this place and they already knew everything that I told you here, talk to me afterwards, because we might have a hobby in common. So, what are these Git gems, you might ask? Well, Git, you see, is a bit like a Swiss Army knife. It's a tool that you recognize, that you know what it's for, but it's also more than that. It has more tools that you might not even know what they're used for. And some of them you might not even know that they are there. So Git is a bit like the Swiss Army knife of version control systems. And yes, this is me. I came up with this, quoting myself. So the goal of this session, as I told you, is to find those hidden tools that they are really useful if you just know that they are there and you know how to use them. But let's first address this elephant in the room. Why are we all staring at ASCII in a terminal? Well, because Git is a command line tool first. And all of the things that I'm going to show you today, you can use them if you use Git from the command line, because there is no way any GUI will be able to surface these features to you. Otherwise, those menus would be, very long. So deal with it. Welcome to the terminal. Everything is done in the terminal, and yes, even the slides are done in the terminal. It took me quite a while to make this, but it was worth it, I think. So the game plan. Here is our canvas. We have a terminal window. We're going to divide into two parts. On the left part, well, your left, my right part, we have a local repository with a project. On the right side, I'm going to have what you will find in a slide typically, some text and some graphics made in ASCII that explain what's going on. Okay, so this is how it's going to work. The project, we need some code. It doesn't really matter what it is. The project we're going to work with is a calculator, a very simple, idiotic calculator that just does add, and it's written in TypeScript, because why not? But it doesn't really matter what it is. So let's start with the first gem. By the way, I have 9 gems, and these kind of build upon each other, okay? So we are building up to something in the end. So, pretty logs. What do you mean with pretty logs? So, you all know about the git log command, this is what you get when you do git log. I mean, it could be fine for some scenarios, but it turns out that Git has an option, git log has an option called pretty. And what this does is that it allows you to customize the way, the output of git log. It's any way you like. And how do you do that? Well, you just need to pass a certain string into this pretty, and then you're all looking at that string and say, wow, what is that? Well, we're going to actually walk through it. It's very easy. So you say git log pretty, and then you don't have to use colors, but it's nice if you do. So the %C stands for color. So what color do you want? And you say, for example, bold red. And then you use placeholders to put out pieces of information about a commit. So the first piece of information maybe is the commit hash, so you say %h. And that's the short version of the commit hash. And there is no, those all placeholders are documented on the git log page. So there is a list of everything you can put there. So we have the hash, and then we need to reset the color to the default, which is usually white. Then we're gonna change the color again, and we're gonna make it yellow. And then we want to print the names of the branches that are pointing to a certain commit, if there are any. And the placeholder for that you would expect would be maybe B for branches or R for references, but no, it's D. I don't know why. So D is for the branch references. Then we reset the color again. Then we make a space, and then we want the first line of the commit message. So that's the summary. This actually does make sense. And then we change the color again, and we make cyan, which is my favorite color, and then we open a parenthesis, and we actually want to see the timestamp. But I don't want to see the entire timestamp. I want to see when the commit was authored, so the A, relative to now, so R, AR. And that's the timestamp relative to now, and then I reset the color again. And this is what you get, okay? And of course, this is just one example. You can play with the placeholders, with the colors, you can make it look just any way you like. And all you have to do is type this every time. That's not that bad. No, actually, I'm kidding. You can create an alias, which is another feature you might know about. Any combination of command and options in Git you can associate to a letter or a word. And that's what you type. So, in this case, we're going to say git config global, because I want to be able to do this in every repository, not just this one. Then you say alias dot and whatever name you want to associate to the command, so LG in this case. And then you say which command do you want to alias, well, log with the pretty option, and then you just paste, well, actually, let's not forget the % signs, the quotes around here. Well, let me just start again, because right now I have it on multiple lines. So git config global alias.lg, and then the command is log with the pretty option, with the quotes, and then everything. And the next time you say git lg, that's what you get, okay? So that's pretty useful. So that was the first gem, easy peasy. Let's talk about more pretty things. In this case, pretty diffs, because diffs are kind of ugly, with the plus and minuses. So what can we do about that? Well, if you do a regular diff, for example, you compare two commits, that's usually what you get, which is fine, but we can do better. It turns out that everything that goes to the console from Git is piped through a command called a pager. Now, the pager can be changed by setting this option, core.pager. And you can associate any command. Well, you can pass the output through any program. Now, some programs out there do pretty things with the output. So in this case, there is a program called Delta, which is written in Rust, so that tells you already that it's cool. Delta is a diff beautifier, so to speak. And you can use it with Git, of course. So what you need to do is you simply say git config global core.pager, and then you say that I want all the output to go through Delta. And the next time you say git diff, you get this instead, with syntax highlighting for the language that the diff is about. Much better than the default one, if you ask me. So, pretty cool stuff that you can do. Now let's start changing files. Let's talk about staging. You stage your changes to the staging area or the index. Now, when you work with Git, you usually tend to, you do many things at once in a file. Maybe you change, You rename a variable, maybe you do some refactoring, maybe you fix a bug, or you add documentation. You do all of these things in the same file. But ideally you want to commit them as separate commits, because that will make it easier later to rearrange them or to choose which one to merge. So ideally every commit is one change, not many changes. But that's hard to do when you're working, to keep that discipline at, I make one change and then I commit, I make another change and then I commit. So instead we do many things at once. Well, it turns out that Git has the possibility to do a so-called patch commit, which means stage just one part of a file, just one change out of many changes that you made. So let's say that you have, for example, a file that looks like this, and you change this portion of the file, and then you change this portion of the file. And you want to just stage that first change, but you want to leave the other one in your local directory. So how do you do that? You use, of course, well, first let's make a change using the one through and only editor. Yeah, right? Yes. Are there any Emacs users? No? Perfect, perfect. My kind of crowd. So, let's make some changes. So, for example, in this case, I know that, well, there is a typo over here because embarrassingly has two R's instead of one, which is embarrassing. So it's kind of a meta typo. And the other change we want to make is that we want to change this to say something else, to be a little bit more academic, because this is an academic calculator. So let's fix the first one. Let's go to the R and say embarrassing with two R's. And then let's go to this one, and then instead of saying this, we can say the addend, which is the mathematically correct term for the numbers that you add. So now we made the two changes, and what we want to do is that we want to commit, well, to stage this part, and we want to let this part stay on the working directory. So let me save this. So you see we have two changes. So we do add, and then we say patch. And what happens next? Well, you get this, of course, the diff, and then Git will ask you, do you want to stage this hunk? Now, this hunk is not the hunk you are thinking about. In this case, hunk is actually the proper term for a portion of a patch. In a diff format, a portion of a patch is called a hunk. So do you want to stage this hunk? And then you get a bunch of options. Can you all see even though it's at the bottom? No? Let me see if I can scroll. No. Well, I'll tell you what it says. It says YNQADSE and then question mark. Bunch of letters. The question mark will tell you what they do. But trust me when I tell you that the S in this case stands for split. So let's split this hunk into two hunks. And then I get the same question. Do you want to stage this one out of two? And then you say yes with Y. Well, do you want to stage this one? And then you say no. And now I've done a so-called patch commit where the same file is simultaneously staged and unstaged. Okay, so I staged just one part of it. And how do I find out which part is staged? Where you say, show me the diff for the staged part. And then if you just say git diff, you get whatever is left in the working directory. Pretty cool. Now, you can do more with this, because what if I want to verify that what I staged works in of itself? In other words, I want to take out all the changes that I have in my working directory, and I want to keep what I have staged, so that I can run the tests and verify that what I'm about to commit actually works in of itself. How can you do that? Well, you will never believe that the stash command that you use to stash things away has an option called keep index. What this does is that it stashes everything you have in your working directory away and removes it. However, it keeps whatever is already staged. And then, of course, if you have new files that you haven't yet committed, you need to add the include untracked options, otherwise those won't be staged. We don't have any new files. So what we can say is that we can say git stash, save, keep index. Now what it was in the working directory has been staged. So if I say git diff, I don't get anything. However, if I say git diff staged, I still have what I have staged. So now I can, run the test, for example, to verify that what I have done actually works in of itself. And when I know that it does, then at this point I can commit. And I say fixes a typo, for example. And then when I'm done, I can say git stash pop, and then I get back the other stuff from the stash. All right, are you all with me? Yeah, great. So let's continue on with more of these gems. Is there did you already know about this stuff? Is it new to you? Raise your hand if you already knew about this stuff. Okay, cool. So nothing new for here. Let's talk about the fourth one, which is searching. We do keep a history of the source control for a reason. The reason is you want to go back and see who changed what and why. So Git has some pretty awesome searching facilities. For example, this typo that we have, this embarrassing, wouldn't it be nice to know which commit introduced the typo? Now, one way to do that in Git is to use the so-called pickaxe, which is Git's most powerful search feature. Pickaxe because you go spelunking into the history. So what do you do with the pickaxe? Well, it shows you all the commits that either add or remove a line that contains a certain string. So for example, in this case, I want to see all the commits that either add or remove the line with the typo. So I can say, well, I can use my alias and say gitlg and then s, and then I say embarrassing with 1 R. And then I get two commits. I get the commit that introduced it, and then of course I have the commit that fixes it, because both of those commits added or removed a line with the typo. Maybe this is not so exciting, but this next one I hope will be. Bonus tip, you can also search by function name, so you can find all the commits that modify a certain function or a method. So for example, in C#, show me all the commits that modify a certain method by name. Or if it's JavaScript, a function, or any other, not really all the languages, but most of them. And that's the L option. So for example, this is a calculator, so there is an add function. So let's look at all the commits that modify the add function in the calculator.typescript file. And this is the commit that you can read, adds the add function. And this works out of the box with all the C style languages, the languages that have the C style syntax. So that's C#, Java, and the script version of JavaScript. And TypeScript, of course. So everything that has a curly brace, it works out of the box, because Git can parse and know what's that function header and what's the function scope. So this one I use from time to time, and that's pretty useful to know, to search by function name. So let's go on and talk about automation. Now, this is kind of, this part is a bit, it has a lot of stuff in it. So I'm gonna do more than explain. So when you work, we do a lot of changes. Sometimes you realize that the change you are making right now, you want to amend an earlier commit. So you realize that something that you should have done 3 commits ago, you do it now. So you need to create a new commit and then you squash it into a previous one. Have you all done this? Squashing commits into previous ones? Yes, very common. And also when you do that, you might have other changes that are not related to the stuff you want to squash. So for example, let's open up our index again. We still have this change from earlier, but let's make another change. For example, let's add a comment that says these are the global options, for example. So now I have added another change which is unrelated. However, the change that I made here, I want to squash this into an earlier commit, the commit that actually added that line, because I want to make it look like I never had this line, right? So, how do I do that? Well, let's use the stuff that we've been learning so far. First, I need to do a patch commit, right? Because I have two changes and I just want to commit this part. This part needs to stay in the working directory. So, let's do the git add patch. Do I want to stage this? No. Do I want to stage this? Yes. Next step is I need to find the commit that I want to squash this into. Now, I need to, I can use the pickaxe function to find the commit that modified this, that introduced this line, numbers to add. So let's use the pickaxe and say git log s, and then this text. Show me the commit that introduced this line. Oh, okay, so here it is. So let's grab this commit hash, and now I have all the pieces I need to do a so-called auto squash. Now what's the auto squash? Well, first you need to enable it, so we say git config global rebase.auto squash. You set it to true. Once you've done that and you want to squash a commit into an earlier one, you can make it really easy for yourself by saying git commit. Instead of just committing, you say fix up, and then you give it the hash of the commit you want to squash into. And when you do that, the commit will have a special message. It had the string fix up exclamation mark, and then it has the commit message of the commit I want to squash into. Now that I've done that, all I have to do is that an interactive rebase. Let's start from, I'm gonna use root here because I'm gonna include everything in my current branch. And oh, I cannot. Why can I not do the rebase? Well, because I have changes in my working directory, right? Has this happened to you? You want to do a rebase, but then you have modified files, and then you get this message. Well, here is another gem for you. There is something called auto stash. Now, what auto stash does is exactly what it sounds like. Before a rebase, if you have any modified files, Git will stash them away for you, do the rebase, and then unstash them when it's done. Pretty awesome. Of course, you need to enable it, and you might wonder why is it not on by default. You say git config global rebase.auto stash with the capital S, otherwise it doesn't work. It's important. So now let's retry the rebase. Yeah, no problem. And you see what happened? The commit that I created got automatically changed to fix up, and it got moved right underneath the commit that I want to squash into. So Git matched the commit message and moved it into the right place. And this is especially useful if you do a bunch of those fix up commits. You do a bunch of them, and then you do one rebase, and everything gets moved into the right place. So all you have to do at this point is that you simply save. The rebase is done, and look what happened when we came back from the rebase. You see, first it created the stash, and then it applied the auto stash afterwards. So if I do git diff now, I have still my changes that I had since before the rebase. Did you know about this? No. Yes. Finally found something. Okay, because Git, is such a treasure of things that some people know some things and some other people know other things. So it's hard to find something that it might be new for most. But this one, I really recommend these two options. You enable them in your config file because they will make your workflow much easier. And again, you might wonder why those are not the default. So let's go on with the dot notation. Do you guys know about the dot notation? Maybe you don't know by this name. What is the dot notation? Well, one of the things you want to do often in Git is you want to know which commits are in this branch but not in this other branch. So for example, you have a situation like this where you are working on a topic branch and you want to know what commits are in my topic branch that I'm working on that are not in the main branch. This is something you want to do very often. Well, there is a quick way to do that in Git, and that's by using the dot notation. So you say git log as usual, or you can use your alias, and then you say show me the commits that are not in this branch. So remember, not in this dot dot, but in another branch. For example, this is a feature branch, so you can think of, let's make it really clear. So let's say, so this is the main, which you have over here. I like to play with colors, as you can tell. And then this is the feature branch, which is over here. Oh, the other way. Okay? So not in the first one, but in the second one. And you get just the commits that are in my topic branch. Now the opposite is also useful. What if I want to see the commits that, what did I use green for that? Let me show the commits that are here, but not the commits that are here. In other words, what is my topic branch missing compared to the main branch? So how do you do that? Do you have any guess? You simply reverse those two. You say show me the commits that are not in my topic branch but that are in the main branch. So you say not in this one but that are in main, and then you get those two. So that is pretty useful in of itself. But this gets even more useful if you start associating them to aliases. And an alias that I use all the time is new, git new. So if you are standing on a topic branch, which you are if you're working on it, right? So let's say that we are working into this feature branch. I want to know what commits have I done here that are not in the main branch. Well, I can use my alias. Well, first let's define it and say alias.new, and the command here is log. Well, unfortunately you cannot reference an alias from an alias. That would be great. So if you want to use the pretty option, you will have to replicate it even in this. But let's not do that. So instead, let's just say one line, which is another compact way to look at history. So you say log one line, and then you can say show me the commits that are not in main but that are in my current branch, the one I'm standing on, the one I've checked out. So I can say git new. And by the same token, I can define an alias that says alias.missing, where I do the exact opposite. I say log, show me the commits that are not in my current branch, but that are in main. And let's do the one line. And then I say git missing. Okay? Those are really, really useful aliases that you can use all the time to just compare your branch with whatever is in main. And if your main is called something else, like for example master or the default, you just change that in the alias. So new and missing, we're going to be using those. Now, actually, let's use them right now because there is something I want to show you. I am in a topic branch, If I say git new and git missing in this topic branch, do you notice something interesting? What? I see some people go, yes, I see, but I don't want to say it. So I will say it. This commit is in both. Do you know why? Well, actually, not only is it in both, but it has different commit hashes. If you remember in the previous gem we did, we squashed a commit into that one. We changed history, right? We used the auto squash feature to change an earlier commit. And that earlier commit, this feature branch that existed before, was based on the old version of the commit that we now have changed. Okay? So now these two commits, they look like they are the same, but they are not the same, because this one contains the new version that we have modified, and the branch contains the old version. Let's keep this in mind, because it's going to become useful with the next gem, which is rebase onto. Do you know about rebase onto? Great. So this you're gonna like, I think. Rebase onto, what does it do? Well, it's rebase, you know, it changes the base of your branch into another base. However, if we have a situation like we have now, where we have our topic branch and we have our main branch. Now, what we have done is that we have modified this commit. We have squashed this, we have squashed another one into this, so it changed the hash, so we modified it. So history now has become like this, where you have the new commit in main and the old commit in the topic branch. Are you with me here? What happened? Yeah, so this is the situation we have. Now what happens if I just rebase topic on top of master? So now we are in the topic branch. What happens if I just rebase it on top of master? What do you think happens? Yes. You get a conflict. Well, if I say what I want to rebase, first get rebase onto main, you get a conflict, because these two are actually changing the same line in different ways. And if you want to look at it, you can see that yes, this is the new line and this is the old line. So you need to resolve the conflict. What if I told you that you don't have to resolve it? No, this happens. If you rewrite history, you're gonna run into this. What if I told you that you don't have to resolve this conflict? You can actually pretend it doesn't exist. So let's abort this rebase. Instead, what you want to do is that you want to rebase this branch on top of this. However, you don't want to rebase the end, because what rebase does usually is that it finds the common parent of both branches and then it starts rebasing everything that's not in the main, right? The missing part. What if I told you there is an option in rebase where you can say you can selectively choose which of these commits you want to rebase. So you want, for example, to exclude this from the rebase, and you want to say I want to just rebase C and D, and I want to skip the E, because I know that there's going to be a conflict there. The way you do that is by saying rebase onto the new base, and then you say what is the old base. So the new base, of course, is this, and the old base is this. So you replace E with F, basically. And by skipping the old commit, the conflict won't appear. So we just ignored it. So in other words, you take these two and you move them up here, and just you skip that one. Now this becomes easier to, oh, I just quit the presentation. So let me just, don't look at the screen now. That's the problem with doing the slides in the terminal. Here, there you go. So in this case, rebase onto becomes rebase onto what? Main. What is the old base? Well, it's the commit E that we change. So from topic will be 2 commits back, right? So you can also go by the commit, you can also go by of course the commit hash. So let's copy the commit hash and say git rebase onto main. What is the old base? Is this commit that we don't want to have anymore. No conflict. And if you do git new now, this commit is no longer here. See? So onto is a way to selectively rebase a portion of a branch into another one. Call it a rebase surgery if you want. But it becomes really useful when you want to skip having conflicts, because you know that you have rewritten a commit, you modify the commit, so you know that you want to just skip it. Rebase onto. And then, of course, in the end, it looks like this, where it's all in one line. So let's move on to the next to last gem. Actually, we're doing pretty good on time. The ref log. Do you guys know about the ref log? Yeah, a few, okay. The ref log, also known as the undo machine. Now this is really useful. All the other things are also useful, but this is something that I think you will appreciate. So every time you modify something in a branch, you do a commit, you do a rebase, you squash, you change the order. Every time you do that, Git keeps a reference to the commit that the branch was pointing to before. So it's kind of, exactly as the name says, a reference log, a branch log. So every branch has its own log. So if you want to see, for example, the ref log for the current branch, you say git ref log and then the name of the branch, and you get a long list. Now, the way to parse this list is that every entry has a hash, and the way it's named is that it's the name of the branch, then the @ sign, and then the position in the history. And if you notice, this becomes larger as they get older. So the higher the index, the older the reference is. Okay, it's like the back button in the browser with the history. And this is not maintained by Git, so you don't have to think about it. There is nothing to enable. This is just by default. And of course, head has its own ref log, which is the same as you would think, but what it does is that it also includes every time you check out a branch. Every time you switch branch, there is an entry in head's own ref log. Now, why is this useful? Well, let's say that you have a situation like this, the usual main and topic. Then you do a rebase. You rebase topic on top of main. But then you change your mind. Have you ever changed your mind after a rebase? Yeah, what do you do then? Do you delete your project and clone it again? Because there are not many options you have to undo a rebase. But if you know, because what you want to do is that when you regret your decision of rebasing, what you want to do is you want to reset this topic to the old commit. But where is it? You don't see it. Well, it's in the ref log. The ref log still has a reference to the old commit before you rebased. And it's only one reset away, right? If you just did a commit, you know that it's going to be one step back in history. So let's do that. Actually, we already did the rebase, right? Yeah, we already did a rebase. So let's undo the rebase we just did by saying git reset hard, because you really mean it. Now, but hard is because, you know, it changes the working directory as well. And then you say feature at the name of the branch and then @1, which is the previous entry in the ref log. And when you do that, now we get back the commit that we excluded before. Now if you think one step ahead and say, can I turn this into an alias? Yes, you can. And you can even call it undo, which I've done. And which I'm not going to show you here, but you know, you get the picture. You say git undo, and it just undoes the previous. It takes the name of the branch and then it says @1, so you undo 1. But you can even do more than that, because this is just a number. So what if you turn it into a parameter? Because aliases can actually take parameters. So you can say, I want to go 3 steps backwards in history, and then you can say git undo 3. Let's undo my last 3 steps. Git undo 4, 10. But then you need to remember, what was my branch pointing to 10 commits ago? I don't know. Okay, but then of course you can search in the ref log. So you can turn this on alias and call it git undo. And what happens is that you can undo your stuff. Keep in mind though that the ref log is not forever, like anything. Nothing is forever. So those entries are going to be deleted at the older they get. By default is 90 days. So whatever is older than 90 days gets removed from the ref log. So, but you can change that, of course, it's an option. But by default you have 90 days to change your mind. But you usually realize it pretty fast when you want to undo a rebase or whatever you want to redo. Last one. Now, so I think my time is up, right? Yes? No? I have more time. Okay. Yes, okay. Because I am at my last and my favorite gem, which is called rerere. Have you heard about rerere? No, it's not just a word, it actually means something. So let's talk about rerere. Git rerere stands for reuse recorded resolution. Now, conflicts are a fact of life, and sometimes we can avoid them rebase onto, some other times you can't. Now, I'm sure that you've been in this situation where you have a long-running branch that you keep for a long time, and then you rebase it multiple times on top of main as new stuff comes in. And then you say, why do I have to resolve the same conflict over and over again? Well, you don't have to, because Git has this feature called the rerere. And what you do with rerere is that every time you see you have a conflict, Git will remember each side of the conflict, and when you resolve it, it will also save your resolution. So the next time you encounter the exact same conflict where the lines are done the same way, it will automatically reapply your previous recorded solution. Of course, you need to enable it, because it's not enabled by default. Again, you might wonder why. So let's enable git config global rerere enabled true. Yeah, it's funny every time. So then let's do an experiment, and let's have our usual main and topic. Now let's say that we want to merge, like with a regular merge, we want to merge topic into main. So, and we know that there will be a conflict, right? So git switch main, and then let's say I want to merge my feature add test script. Now I get a conflict, but I also get this mysterious message: recorded pre-image for the file. Okay, so this tells you that rerere is enabled and it's working. And of course this is just a regular conflict, so you need to resolve it. Of course you use Vim to resolve the conflicts. Who doesn't? I mean, for easy stuff it's okay, but if it's a complicated diff, even I don't use Vim for that. So let's just remove the conflict headers, and let's say that I want to keep the new version of the line. Okay, so I just resolve the conflict, and then I just continue with my merge. Sorry, I need to add it to the index, of course. This tells Git that I have resolved the conflict, and then I continue with my merge. And then, yeah, that's the merge commit message. See what happens here? Boom, recorded resolution for that. Now you know that Git is very good at letting you change your mind. So let's change our minds and say, I don't want to have a merge commit there. I want to rebase instead and have one linear history, because that's the best history, is the linear history. So, okay, no problem. Let's reset this back to the previous. So now we have a merge commit, right? If you go back here, we have the merge commit. We want to reset to the previous commit, okay? So we say git reset head -1, so the previous commit compared to head. So let's remove that, and now we have removed, we are back to this situation. Now let's rebase topic on top of main. So let's switch to the topic branch. And now I say rebase main. Now a rebase is still a sequence of merges. Instead of merging 2 commits at once, you are applying 1 commit at a time. So if there are any conflicts with a merge, you're going to have them with a rebase as well. However, this time, you still get a conflict, but here, down here, I hope you see it, it says resolved using previous resolution. Huh? And you say, but why do I still get the conflict then? Yeah, because, things change. It's not sure that the resolution that it recorded still applies. So it will still show you a conflict, and will still let you decide, do you want to have this resolution or do you want to change it? So let's take a look at the file. How does this file look like? Yeah, it automatically chose the same line that I chose before. So now I can say, yes, I want to keep it. This makes sense. So I don't have to do anything else other than adding it to the index and then say rebase continue. And now I've completed my rebase, and I didn't have to resolve the conflict again. I just had to check that it made sense. And if for any reason you don't want to keep that resolution, you want to replace it, when you are in the middle of the conflict, like we did now, you can say git forget, and then the path. And what will happen is that git will forget about the previous resolution. Now you might wonder, what is this magic? Where are all these files? No magic. You know about the git directory, right? The .git directory. In Git, everything is files, text files. There is no text files with compression. So here there is something called RR cache. Why not RRR? I don't know, but RR cache. So in here you will find exactly what you expect. It saves for every commit that had a conflict. It has the pre-image, which is how the conflict looked like. Then there is this, and then there is the resolution. This one I don't have to worry about. So it basically saves a copy of the conflicting file and then a copy of the resolved file, and then it applies it again. All right. So let's sum up what we have been looking at. 9 gems, some more common, other more exotic. First one, pretty logs with the pretty options. Then more pretty stuff, pretty diffs with the Delta program in this case. But there is another one, if you prefer, called diff so fancy. That's written in JavaScript, so you can use that with the pager instead. Interactive patch commits with the partial staging and using the stash to save everything you have and keep the index and verify those changes by themselves. So interactive staging. Then we have searching using the pickaxe to look for commits that add or remove a file with a certain text, and even look for commits that modify a certain function by name. Automation with the auto stuff that's not enabled by default, I don't know why. Auto squash, and my favorite, auto stash. Do a rebase without saving your stuff first. Git will stash it, let you do a rebase, and then unstash it afterwards for you. auto squash, auto stash, auto everything. Dot notation, compare branches, what's in this branch that's not in the other branch with the dot dot, and then you reverse them if you want to see what's in the other branch but not in your branch. Rebase onto, kind of exotic but pretty useful. I know you might need to read up on it on the documentation how it looks like, but just think of it, rebase onto new base, and then what was the old base that's gonna be excluded. So portion of a branch, move it up. The ref log, the undo machine. Everything has a ref log, well, everything in Git has a ref log. Well, not even that. All the branches in Git have a ref log. Use it to undo your actions by resetting 2 entries in the ref log. And the best, reuse recorder resolution. Also something you need to enable. I can't believe it, I just 3 minutes over. So these are just a few of the gems. There are more, there are many, many more. So if you have a Pluralsight subscription, I have a course out called Advanced Git Tips and Tricks. Contains this stuff, of course with more in-depth explanation. And the link is over there. And with that, thank you very much for your attention.